Here we go. It's Hot Sheet. Scotty Braun, Ben Badler, and Geoff Pontes from Baseball America, and it is Cyber Monday. So, guys, we have to, of course, start with a little shameless plug for Baseball America Cyber Monday sale, because you don't get this opportunity very often. Breaking news. Save 30% on a Baseball America subscription. All you have to do at sign out is, or at checkout, is use the code BA30 for 30% off at baseballamerica.com/Black Friday. So this has been going on since late last week. Save on a 1-year digital subscription to BA. Great way to support all of the hard work going on behind the scenes at Baseball America. Okay, gentlemen, with that, let's hit the first move. Ben, you put out a fascinating article on Roki Sasaki to really dive into some of the teams that could be in the running for him. I'm going to point out one that I demand you talk about within your opening explanation here, and that would be the Texas Rangers, which I found fascinating. But want to run through your thought process and what you're hearing so far about him?
Yeah, so like I imagine that a player like Roki Sasaki, if he's giving up, if he waits 2 years, he's probably signing for what, 200, maybe 300 plus $1 million, topping the 325 million contract maybe that Yamamoto got just from the Dodgers a year ago. If he's given that up and taken a 95% haircut to sign now under the international bonus pool restrictions, he's probably going to go somewhere where he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be competitive, or with a team that's going to be competitive for a playoff spot for the next 5-6 years. So a lot of the teams we mentioned in the story are 2024 playoff teams. Probably the Rangers stand out as an exception. Obviously, they can point to, hey, we just won a ring the year before. They've got more talent coming back next year. Healthy Evan Carter, a step forward from Wyatt Langford, Kumar Rocker, Jacob deGrom. There's reasons to be optimistic about Texas's playoff chances next year. But I think really just they've been positioning themselves for a while now to try to make a pretty strong run at Sasaki. This is typically a team that internationally is one of the most aggressive teams playing in the market, being very competitive early on in the process for prospects that they're signing from Latin America. And then you look at the class that it looks like they have lined up for January 15th, this upcoming signing period. And well, where are like the really big bonus guys? Like, that they have some players that they're connected to, but it also seems like they have more so than almost every other team out there, a lot of uncommitted money still remaining. Now, look, any owner or GM who says like, forget about all these deals with kids we have from Latin America, like we're going to blow that up and go after Sasaki. Okay, obviously it's all non-binding commitments. Any team can go ahead and do that. But it does seem like Texas has really been preparing to try to make a hard push to try to sign Sasaki.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting landing spot too. Obviously, they had a down year, but there's still like a pretty nice young core there. Evan Carter should be back off injury. I think we all expect Wyatt Langford to resemble the player he was in the second half and probably take a step forward. It's a really exciting pitching staff when you factor in guys like Jacob deGrom, et cetera, and could, ultimately maybe set up for a 6-man rotation potentially as well. With some of the young arms that they have that they've had to add to the 40-man roster. I think that's a really interesting landing spot. If I had to place my bet still, though, I still think it's probably going to be the Dodgers. Ultimately is where he ends up. I don't know where, Scott is hearing, in his MLB work or not, but I think that's sort of where I lie.
Yeah, Ben, I don't know if you have any more insight on the Dodgers versus the field, right? Because you laid out in this article, some of the teams involved, as you mentioned, some of them. But do you still feel like it's hard to see him going anywhere but the Dodgers? I know Jim Bowden made some noise when he was explaining the endorsement money situation and how that works, right? Bowden writes for The Athletic, former general manager, pointing out how you actually don't make as much money when you're playing on a team that has, quote, bigger stars, and that, Shohei Ohtani is obviously gobbling up the marketing money. I would make the case that there may be some bargain shoppers, brands that are looking for someone that doesn't cost a ton of money, and maybe that fits the bill with someone like Roki Sasaki. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about this particular topic, but we do know this. Roki Sasaki is not going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, like Yamamoto, who obviously came over here past the signing age to make him eligible to be signed as a non-international amateur free agent, right? And just looking at the signing bonus here for Roki Sasaki, it's not going to be massive money. So I'm wondering on your side if you think that will be a factor here. One note I'll include from Bowden was that he heard Senga makes more money than Yamamoto in marketing dollars, and that's based on Senga being the big man in New York with the Mets and Yamamoto being second fiddle to Shohei Ohtani. Again, just going off what he says, I personally still have a hard time believing that a player can't make tons of money playing for the Dodgers as a Japanese ball player if he's a star. And the fact that the Dodgers basically have every game playing and getting a ton of pub over in Japan, you would think that, investing in the second or third best player as a brand is still very lucrative. But what do you think about all of this?
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I think there's still tremendous marketing opportunities for him with the Dodgers for all the reasons you said. I think he's probably even he's not going to get paid the contract that Yamamoto did, but he's probably a more marketable and bigger young star than Yamamoto. I mean, we have people here and clubs are talking about him potentially being one of the best young pitchers they've seen, kind of along the lines of, what Skeens was or what Steven Strasburg was. I think he has tremendous off the field upside. And I think that's very much true in LA. Everything is very set up for him there. And everything I said about Texas too, as far as, having being a very aggressive team typically in Latin America. But what seems like they're holding back a lot for the current signing period that ends December 15th, but also for the upcoming signing period. They're definitely, it seems like a team that has money to spend, even if they have a smaller bonus pool relative to other clubs. But again, if Roki Sasaki is willing to come over now instead of waiting a couple of years and sign for hundreds of millions of dollars, is a difference in a ultimate signing bonus offer with $1 million or $2 million. Is that really going to sway where he ultimately plays? Maybe we'll see, but I don't think it's going to be as huge of a factor as what we typically see.
One more quick one for you, Ben, and then we'll get to our guest. Is there much of a difference between having a, say, verbal agreement with a player like Roki Sasaki versus the dozens, hundreds of players over the years that have agreements on international deals as amateurs before they sign, right? The big story was the 14-year-old who was really 19 with the Padres, but we see those deals that are agreed on. It's kind of become common practice, right? You agree to a deal a year or two before that signing period opens up. So is there technically any difference? I don't know if it's necessarily like, quote, rule friendly, but you know what I'm talking about, where, he could have a conversation with a team and just not have a formal agreement with them.
Yeah, potentially I wouldn't rule out something entirely. I guess I don't think that's the case here.
Sure.
But yeah, look, Latin American players, typically the way it works is they'll agree to a deal with a team well in advance, 1, 2, 3, 4 years in advance of when their official signing date is. And then, a lot of things change. Player doesn't get as developed the way the team thought. Team could fire all of its international scouts. New GM comes in. They back out of the deal, or maybe the player gets better. They offer him more money, or the player changes teams. He changes his mind. So until January 15th, and then again on this January 15th, we'll see. Because if Roki Sasaki is still unsigned, there's probably going to be a lot of teams that are that see themselves as serious competitors for him that are not going to all of a sudden sign all of their players right away on January 15th as usual. But until you have a signed contract, obviously nothing is official.
So again, we'll keep hitting the storyline to be continued. Great coverage from Ben. Make sure you see the whole article on baseballamerica.com. All right, let's get to our guest. Joey Loperfido is a part of the Toronto Blue Jays these days. The slugger joining us right now, coming off a pretty wild season, of course, having a good time in the big leagues and going from Houston to Toronto. Here he is. Joey, great to have you on. Thank you for the time and happy off season to you. How was your holiday, man?
It was good. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm here in Philly. Was up with my mom's side of the family in Connecticut for Thanksgiving, but no, doing well.
So I'm going to start here. What did your family or anyone that was at the Thanksgiving table say to you about this past season, like what they observed from you. Of course, getting to experience the big leagues for the first time, but also then moving teams. It was just a very hectic year for you, but mostly in a good way.
Yeah, well, my number one fan was there. My grandma, she's 92. She's a super fan of all things me. So uh, she was happy that I'm healthy. She was happy that you know I'm home for the off season and get a little bit of time up. But no, I mean everybody up there knows a little bit better than to grill me on baseball stuff. And we get to spend some time together as a family. But I think everybody just kind of agreed it was a little bit of a gauntlet of, you got the ups and downs of a rookie year. You mix a trade into that. And, I feel like I definitely, faced just about everything you could, knock on wood, other than a big injury. So it was a fun year. Hectic is definitely one way I'd describe it.
All right, so I'm going to get to some of the hectic parts. You go over to Toronto. I'm sure for the most part when you get there, they're like, hey, do your thing, and then we'll kind of start to mix in our thoughts. Is that how it played out? And since that time period, have you had any conversations with the Blue Jays organization behind the scenes about how they observe you as a player? Because I think that's always interesting too. When you get traded to a team, we always hear about the pitchers even more so than the hitters. But of course, they're scouting every player, especially the big names in the minor leagues and then in the big leagues as soon as you get up to the show. So what did you learn from them?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a shotgun wedding in terms of how quickly you're trying to develop relationships with not just the guys in the clubhouse, but with the rest of the staff. But I couldn't be happier to be in Toronto and to be with the Jays. I know they pride themselves on communicating and developing relationships with players. So no, it's been good. Um, I obviously offensively have some things that I'm working on and would like to adjust. And I think everybody's kind of on the same page of how to do that, the plan to do it, and that I am going to do it. So I feel like I'm in the right place with the right people, and fortunate to be there.
Oh, wait, Geoff, you're muted.
Played a variety of positions over the years defensively, particularly when you were in the Houston organization. Going into next season, what sort of positions are you focused on? Where do you think you're going to end up seeing most of your time?
I think it's definitely an outfield focused. I know, last offseason I was making sure I was taking my ground balls and getting my infield work, in to be ready to play first base. I didn't really get to do that in Houston. I mean, that's still something that I definitely keep in my back pocket, and know I can play first base in the big leagues if needed. But no, I think the work's going to be in the outfield. I played mainly left in Toronto, so that's where I'll be prepared to play.
Joey, when you were with Houston, what were some of the core hitting philosophies that organization really tried to hammer on? And then since you've gotten to Toronto, at least in the time that you've been there, what have you seen that's different in terms of the principles that the Blue Jays are preaching to hitters?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of coming up through the ranks in Houston, they obviously place a premium on swing decisions, and batted ball metrics. Um, But I think, when it comes down to it, I think no matter the language that the organization's putting it in, I think a lot of people are kind of saying some of the same stuff. When it comes to me, I've always, tried to work really hard on my lower half and having a good foundation and being stable there. Um, and yeah, I mean, you can look at the metrics, but I don't think the way to get those metrics is necessarily, fixating on those externals. I think it's just, kind of a product of the work. So I think the same things are always true. I've been working on, the same stuff for the past couple of years now. And I think those are kind of the main key points that I'll be working on for, the next 10 years.
Jerry, I'm curious, when the trade happens, Kikuchi moves over to the Astros. He pitched really well down the stretch for them. So that certainly worked in terms of what they were looking for. On the other end, when we saw the write-ups, I mean, it was pretty consensus. Most people were saying, hey, the Astros had to give up a haul. Did you see any of that? And I don't want to say it doesn't make you feel good because you know how you are as a player already. But, there were multiple players involved in this deal. They definitely had to give up a lot. Kikuchi was very coveted. But did it make you feel good to see that they're going, oh, wow, the Astros had to give up a lot? You're like, cool, I was part of that.
Yeah, I mean, at the time when it happened, we thought like Jake Bloss was the first name that kind of we heard in the Houston clubhouse, and we thought that was kind of a lot on its own. And then it wasn't until after the game that night that I realized I'd be going, and then that we'd realized Will was going. So, um, you try not to get caught up or wrapped up in that kind of stuff, but no, I mean, it's part of the business of the game. I'm not really the one that makes those decisions, but yeah, I mean, I think the Blue Jays got some good players out of this deal.
Switching gears here a little bit, Joey. You were part of this debut class in MLB this season. There were some cards put up by Topps that had the debut patches. Heard a story that you had signed these cards, which are 1/1, with an actual like DM me on it. Have you heard back from the person that pulled that card yet? And what's the story there?
I have. We did find the guy. We're in talks right now. We're in negotiations, but we're working on something pretty cool that I can't really speak too much about. But I think we're going to end up doing some good with the card, and I think it should be fun. So I'll hopefully have an update on that here within the week. But no, I did find the guy that found it.
That's really cool. I love that.
He was not at
When
Thanksgiving,
he was
unfortunately.
not at Thanksgiving. Okay. So that
We would
wasn't
have
part
had
of the
him.
deal.
We had plenty of room for him, but maybe next year.
When you first got that message, was it just a, hey, I got your card, or was there anything else to it, taking a picture with it, the whole deal, right? Because, I mean, you could have gotten that now, or there's some people, as you know, that save boxes, sell them years later. This could have happened 5 years from now.
Yeah, I was prepared to be extorted. I had my legal team at the ready. I had my mom, my lawyer, ready to go. Um, but no, I mean my DMs were kind of getting full from people saying that they had about like probably 400 people say that they were the ones that found it. But ultimately, I think he posted a picture on his own Instagram of it, and Tops. I think some people with Tops kind of verified it and were like, "Hey, I think we found who has it." So. Um, Gonna make some cool stuff happen for him, and I think we're gonna get some money donated to a good cause. So it should be fun.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. All right, let's get back to the field. So you joined the Jays. I know it wasn't a ton of time. Are there any players in particular that you got to spend a good chunk of time with or learn from? Of course, the first name that comes to mind for me is Dalton Varsho and how ridiculous he's been in the outfield for Toronto. Not to mention that, no big deal. He's been a catcher in the past in his life, and now he's like the best defensive outfielder in the sport. So throwing his name out there, but any others, of course, as well that you've gotten to connect with.
Yeah, well, my locker is right next to George, which I think is cool. I think, he played in Houston, obviously, and he did a lot of cool things there. And then, to be able to be the veteran and the leader that he is in Toronto, for us position guys, it's cool to be next to him and just like pick his brain on stuff, and get closer with him. Varsh is, I mean, it's just incredible to watch what he does night in and night out in the outfield. Um, and I mean, Davis Schneider, and I played against each other growing up in high school. And so to have that kind of like young group of him, Ernie, Spencer, all those guys, I mean, it's a fun and younger group to be a part of. So I definitely enjoy getting to the field every day and getting to hang out with those guys in the clubhouse.
Joe, I wanted to ask you too about your time before you got into pro ball. I mean, you went to Duke. I'm curious to know, what was your recruiting process like? Did you have a bunch of offers coming out of high school, and then what made you choose Duke? I mean, it seems like you got there right at the right at the right time, right as Duke was really taking the next step. I mean, you're going back to back super regionals. Your first couple of years there, right as Chris Pollard was taking that program to the next level.
Yeah, I say this all the time, but if I could kind of go back and do my college process over, I'd do everything, the exact same, and I'd go to Duke, 10 times over. But I didn't have any offer. I didn't have any official offers other than Duke. I had visited Clemson, but didn't get an offer, and I had taken a tour of the Naval Academy. But I was kind of a late bloomer physically. I didn't really, hit a big growth spurt until maybe after my sophomore year. Um, but no, I mean, I say this to my parents all the time. When I was like, guys, like we're lucky, Coach Pollard saw that game that I think I made a catch and got a couple hits because like there wasn't really another offer. And I joke with him all about that all the time. But no, I mean, I love that school. Everything that he kind of pitched to me in terms of where the program was heading when I committed in 2015 or 16, I think every bit of it came true, and I take a lot of pride to have gone to that program and to watch their sustained success under him. It's cool.
That's really cool. Well, I heard in a little over a month, you're actually going to be reciting some of the lines that you just said, most likely at the banquet. So do you have your speech prepared? And how much do you think about, passing important messages along to players at Duke who, of course, some are going to go on and just be brilliant in other worlds, but some are going to take that same path and pursue the big leagues. And it's going to be a grind to get to that point.
Yeah, I got some index card. We're in the early stages of my drafts. I got some index cards laid out. I think I got my shoes picked out for what I'm going to wear. But we'll continue to do revisions on the speech. But no, it's cool. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I'm honestly just going to try and say to the team some stuff that I wish I had heard when I was in their shoes. And Duke's a special place where you kind of get that combination of people that are going to be playing in the big leagues and people that are going to be changing the world for the better and pretty much whatever they choose to do. So to me, I feel like it's the perfect blend of college baseball and academics. I'm obviously a little biased, but no, I'm excited to get down there. I know they got some new on-campus stadium renovations that are underway, so it should be a good weekend.
Yeah, they're doing great things down there. We're looking forward to it. Maybe we'll get a little clip at least of the speech somewhere on social media, especially for all the trolls that posted fake Joey Loperfido cards. They can actually get to know you for real and see what you were saying down there at Duke. So give us at least a little bit of the speech on socials after. But Joey, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time. Great to have you on. Good luck the rest of the off season. We'll catch you in spring training in Dunedin. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Joey Loperfido from the Toronto Blue Jays joining us as Baseball America keeps going through their top 10 list. That includes, as you can see, the Yankees, Blue Jays, White Sox, Tigers, and Guardians this week as we're finishing up the American League East and then moving over to the American League Central. One thing you'll notice, Joey Loperfido not in that top 10 for the Blue Jays because he graduated. He is no longer a prospect. He's a big leaguer. So keep that in mind. And let's get to Helium Spot. All right, let's dive into a little fantasy discussion. And also, Geoff, I want to test the waters to see if the hot sheet fans want a little more of this. So Dynasty, fantasy, sleepers, and fades. You've been covering that. Obviously, a lot of fantasy work being done in the offseason here, especially when you're thinking long-term in your Dynasty leagues. So can you walk us through some standouts from the article? Give us a little sneak peek of what to expect if people want to click in.
Yeah, Scott. So we're going through kind of position group by position group. We combine a few. So we combine like first baseman, third baseman, so corner outfielders, catchers, and then have another post coming out on Wednesday that's going to go through middle infielders, second baseman, shortstop, deeper group there, and then next week will be outfield, and then pitchers before the end of the month. So this is all sort of building up to a bigger list that combines everybody. So what we have so far are sleepers and sort of fades and targets that we put out with each positional group. We've done the corner infield thus far. I think a couple names that I would call out is Angels Louis Rengifo. On a per game basis, he was really, really good last year. I think there's plenty of opportunity there as well. He's got a bunch of different position eligibility, which, obviously helps in terms of fitting him into a lineup and, gives you a bunch of different build potentials as well. On the prospect side, Trey Morgan is somebody I just think the underlying statistics and batted ball data type of stuff we're seeing in terms of bat to ball skills, approach, all that stuff, I think will translate. There's probably more power there. He's a pretty good athlete. So I think he's somebody that's probably undervalued right now. So he's a bit of a sleeper. And then Pavin Smith of the D-backs had a really big finish to the end of the year last year. There's obviously some platoon concerns there, but the numbers down the stretch were really good. I think he hit 270, 348, 547 over 60 games. We'll see how he shakes out in terms of playing time in that D-backs lineup, but potentially somebody that you can get for really cheap in a variety of different formats, whether it's Dynasty, which is where you keep players from year to year, or a more general redraft where you're picking new players each season. I think he's somebody that could be undervalued and, could potentially return value on that pick.
All right. And then lastly, from a writing perspective, Geoff, what else should we look forward to on the fantasy front here? So you're going to tackle 1 or 2 positions per article?
Yeah, exactly. So we have the middle infielders, which is shortstops and second base. There's some position crossover with the corner infielders. Then outfielders will be next week. They all come out on Wednesday, and then one of these corresponding sleepers, fades, and target articles comes out on Thursday. We'll then do outfielders, like I said, next week. Pitchers after that. We'll have a slight break over the holiday break, and then when we come back, we'll have the full Dynasty list coming out in the first or second week of January, which is where we combine all the lists somewhere, probably around 500 to 600 names. We'll have a Dynasty prospect only list, which will vary from the regular top 100 as well. And then just, updates throughout the offseason, sleeper articles, articles with Dylan sort of digging in on maybe some statistical standouts and things like that. So a lot of fantasy focused content. We have a lot of it coming out already, and we should have all the rankings ready for draft season right around the beginning of the year. So we're a little ahead of schedule.
Selfishly, for me, I am always locked in on the prospect list in Dynasty because we do a minor league draft in my super intense NL only roto league with keepers and the whole deal going. So I'll look out for that. And yeah, if anyone wants more of this, of course, BA shines in the prospect world. So it's a good way to kind of make sure you're dominating your Dynasty league. I know, a lot of the, other fantasy advice out there might just focus on the big leaguers. This takes more of a global approach if you're really trying to dominate. So check it out. And again, that leads me to the way we finish the show, which is the way we started the show. It is 30% off at Baseball America's site. We don't do a lot of this shameless promoting, so we got to do it now because if you are trying to get involved and get yourself an annual subscription, it's just cheaper right now. So we're just trying to help you out, okay? BA30 is the code to use when you go to baseballamerica.com/Black Friday and get yourself some savings on that 1-year digital subscription to Baseball America. Thanks, everyone that supports the show. Please click subscribe. Also, if you're listening on the podcast, leave us a little rating and review. And let us know if you want more of this Fantasy Dynasty content. Ben and Geoff, good to see you. And we'll catch everyone next week as we do every single Monday on Hot Sheet.